We want to switch gears now and have a conversation tonight. William Carew from the Economic, Social and Cultural Council, ECOSOC Secretariat at the African Union, where he heads that ECOSOC and also is an international development expert, joins us on set. How are you, sir?
I'm okay.
You're doing well?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. Let's begin our conversation with some of the news you've seen us carry today, and that is regarding the flooding situation in the country. And as it doesn't just affect Kenya, it also affects some of the neighboring countries like Tanzania. But from where you sit as the Economic, Social and Cultural Council, sometimes even advising the heads of states in the African Union, how do you approach the aspect of climate change and the crisis we are dealing with right now?
Thank you very much. I think to start with, we need to first and foremost indicate that the issue of climate change is a global concern, and it is a major concern for the African Union. We've seen the commitment from the side of the African Union. In fact, a conference was hosted last year by His Excellency the President William Ruto. That is also a manifestation of the commitment from the side of the African Union. In terms of ECOSOC, as an advisory organ of the African Union, what have we been doing in relation to issues of climate change? We are a policy development interface that provides advice to the policy decision-making body of the African Union, the Executive Council, and the heads of state, which is the Assembly. And I think what we have done in recent time is to convene a multi-stakeholder consultation and at the same time undertake empirical-based research so that we have evidence to be able to inform policy on the basis of evidence. So we have provided a policy advice to the African Union on how we can tackle and then also create a much more multi-stakeholder kind of engagement for us to be able to address these issues of climate change. It's a major concern. Absolutely. And I'm in solidarity with what is happening in Kenya. In fact, the African Union chairperson has issued an official statement in solidarity with the people and government of Kenya.
It's good you reference policy from where you sit as ECOSOC, because we want to understand your role as ECOSOC in relation to what role do you play in the African Union. You mentioned policy. Is that the only thing you do with the African Union?
Not really. And it is important, this year we are commemorating our 20 years of existence. So ECOSOC has been in existence for 20 years, since 2004. So historically, the organ was established in 2004, officially launched in 2005, under the leadership of the former Nigerian president, and who was then the chairperson of the union, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo. And after the launch, ECOSOC, under Article 5 and 22, was given a mandate to be able to provide advice. But at the same time, the organ also have a responsibility to popularize AU programs and policies in terms of bringing the African Union closer to the people and the people closer to the African Union. So we undertake a lot of initiatives at various member states level, such as the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, bringing awareness to it, the aspects of free movement of people, and then many other development initiatives, climate change and the likes. So we raise awareness and at the same time provide advice to the African Union, especially on policy-related issues.
These celebrations that will begin tomorrow of 20 years of existence, what is the significance, or what does this symbolize really for the continent?
We want to showcase or demonstrate the unwavering support of civil society organization to African solidarity over the last 20 years. You will agree with me that civil society has played a pivotal role in transformation of this continent. Before, we used to talk about issues related to gender, issues of democracy. We have seen the active role of civil society in conversation related to governance and gender and many other development-related issues. So ECOSOC actually will be commemorating 20 years, and this will be in July in Accra, where we'll be having the media coordination meeting. So from the 16th to the 20th, ECOSOC will be undertaking series of engagement. But one of the most important engagement we'll be having is the Citizens Forum on democracy and governance. This year we'll be focusing on democracy and institutional resilience. You see the challenges we are confronted with, the resurgence of unconstitutional changes of government in the continent. So we want to have a conversation on how citizens can play a role in addressing issues of governance deficit in the continent.
When you talk about governance deficit, it's good you mention it because those are some of the Pan-African values that I would assume that you are promoting. But let's talk about a specific, probably Pan-African issue that probably you've been able to address as ECOSOC, as a means of, practical solutions to practical African problems.
Issues of peace and security in the continent. Article 20 of the Peace and Security Protocol provides and encourages ECOSOC as an organ of the African Union to promote peace, security, and stability in the continent. So if you look at what is happening in the continent in terms of violent extremism, terrorism, transnational crime, and the resurgence of unconstitutional changes of government, these are critical issues that touches on our democracy. ECOSOC as an organ has been engaging with relevant stakeholders. One, in creating awareness. Two, discussing issues related to policy that will help to shape the trajectory that we want to go. And above all, looking at how we promote democracy and the credential of democracy in the continent is very important, because it is only when you have a much more democratic process that you create space for citizens to thrive.
I want to understand, particularly when you're referencing aspect of security, war and instability. Is it intra-Africa, or when you're engaging the heads of state from the African Union, it goes beyond the borders of the continent?
Well, if you talk about peace and security, it has its own effect, whether in the continent or out of the continent. An instability in Africa is an instability in the globe at large. And therefore, when we talk about peace and security, the African Union has established what we call the African Peace and Security Architecture. This is an architecture that is built on structures, on principles, on objectives, and decision-making. And it is actually a structure that is meant to promote peace, security, and stability in the continent. So when we look at our role as civil society organization, one, we want to promote peace. We want to ensure that the continent is peaceful. In fact, one of the aspirations of the first 10 years implementation plan was silencing the gun. And I'm pretty sure many people have been asking whether the guns have been silenced. Indeed, if you look at where we are coming from and where we are today and the number of wars and coups we used to have before the resurgence of the unconstitutional changes of government, you will agree that a lot has been done and significant progress has been made. So we are engaging with relevant stakeholders to discuss some of these issues. But we want citizens to be at the center of the conversation. Because when all is said and done, citizens are the ones who are mostly affected. Therefore, they need to be part and parcel of that conversation. They need to be part of the decision-making process. They need to sit on the table to be able to determine where we want Africa to go.
Tell us about 3 strategic goals that you have now moving forward. Now that you're celebrating 20 years, some of the 3 most important strategic goals that you have moving forward.
One, this year marks the 20th year, like I rightly said. It's coinciding with the rollout of the next 10 years implementation plan of the African Union Agenda 2063. So we have a mandate to popularize that agenda. So we want to see citizens at the center of the development, at the center of implementation, and they are able to monitor and track the implementation of the first 10 years implementation plan. The second aspect is on free movement of people. We've seen a lot has been said in terms of free movement. As we speak, only 4 countries have ratified. So we are embarking on an advocacy campaign continentally, engaging with member states to see how we can have more ratification. We need 15 ratification so that we're able to move it into law. And we want to be very grateful to the government of Kenya. At least we can move in comfortably without necessarily going through the challenges of visa and the likes. And then lastly, if you look at the aspects of the Continental Free Trade Area, which has been signed by 54 countries, ratified by 47, it is the largest trade area in the continent of about 1.3 billion, with a total GDP of about 3.4 trillion. So it is significant, and the potential that it has to remove or to lift about 30 million people out of poverty. So we want to see how we can raise awareness, in the issue of Africa Continental Free Trade Area, so that member states look at it from a multilateral perspective rather than from a bilateral trade agreement, because that is the only way Africa will benefit from it.
As we wind up very quickly, who is welcome to your meeting? How are you engaging members of the civil society?
So the meeting tomorrow is a colloquium, and it's going to be a conversation where we will engage with the media, we'll engage with civil society, the private sector, government representative, regional economic communities, and regional mechanism. We want to have a conversation on issues related to peace and security so that we can be able to provide input into the larger conversation that is taking place on the Summit of the Future. So it will happen tomorrow at the Safari Park Sport Hotel. You are welcome.
Safari Sports Club.
The Safari Sports Club,
Okay.
sorry about it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. And of course, we wish and probably, hope for greater engagements with particularly the Kenyan media on the aspect of what you're doing in the African Union, and we wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
That is William Karu, an international development expert, but of course the head of Economic, Social and Cultural Council Secretariat at the African Union. And that meeting with civil society organizations is very important tomorrow. Of course, if you're a member of a civil society organization, you can make your way tomorrow to the sports club there. And of course, it's just along the University Way. Now, up next is Business with Carol Jenga.